Hello and welcome. This is a new motorcycle video I'm making. On December the 9th, I took a ride from my house to Bungonia National Park, which is east of Goulburn, and with my usual high degree of skill operating the camera, I turned my camera on and thought I had pressed the record button to record the ride out. It turns out that I hadn't done that, or if I had done it, not done at the right point or for long enough or something or other, because the ride out to Bungonia was not recorded. So what happened was that I recorded a number of videos of the look downs, as they're called, in Bungonia National Park, and I posted those to my YouTube channel and Facebook at the time. Then after I realised what happened, I made sure the camera was recording and recorded part of the ride back. So what you're going to see in this video and the next two videos is the ride back from Bungonia National Park towards Goulburn. So by way of explanation, Bungonia National Park is a national park about 40 kilometres east of Goulburn. To get there, if you're not a local, or even if you are local, if you're visiting the Goulburn area, you would take the road to Braidwood. From Goulburn, you would take the Braidwood Road, and once you cross the railway bridge off Sloane Street, you take the first turn on the left, which says Bungonia and Windelama, and you keep going along there for probably 2.5, maybe 3 kilometres, and after you've gone over the highway bypass overbridge, you'll come to Mountain Ash Road, which is on the left-hand side. So you take the left turn, it's clearly marked Bungonia National Park, and you ride out there for about 35 or 40 k's, 35, 36 k's should I say, and you'll eventually come to Bungonia National Park. There are gates that mark the entrance to Bungonia National Park. There are no entry fees. There are picnic tables and toilets and electric barbecues. There are water tanks, but the water is marked as not being fit for drinking, so you would need to take your own water, either in flasks or thermoses or whatever, to make coffee or pre-made coffee, or obviously bottled water or something like that. There are lots of walking trails within the Bungonia National Park. Some of them are quite short, and I think I covered one of them, the Molly O'Neill Nature Trail, which is only about 250 metres long, but there are other tracks that take an hour or more, and some take up to 5 hours, and are quite rugged. So it's advised, if you're going to do any sort of walking in there, that you check in at the office, which is near the entrance, so that people know that you're in, the staff there, I guess, know that you're in the park, and if you don't return in a certain number of hours or something, they know to be concerned and they should look for you or whatever. So having gone and looked at all the look downs and taken video of those, and the parking area and the Adams look down, as I mentioned a moment ago, I then got on my bike and rode out of the national park, and eventually, I think fairly shortly, this video will come to a crossroad and take a left turn towards the village of Bungonia. I've actually not been to Bungonia. I can't recall having gone there in the 40 odd years that I've lived in Goulburn. So I was aware that there was a look down there, because it's often talked about in all sorts of circles. But I'd never been there, and I didn't realise there was a village there. In the village there's a small general store. There's looks like a community hall that also operates as a cafe a couple of hours on one day of the week. And there's a magnificent looking building that looks like it must have been the school at one stage, but it's obviously closed and probably a private residence or something. There are some houses, and there's a small war memorial. I'm not sure how many people live out there at Bungonia, but it would only be a handful. And anyway, from then onwards I took the road further east, and I'm sorry I can't tell you the name of the road. I just cannot remember it, and I'm looking for maps to find the name of that road. It's been difficult to find it marked on any maps. It's not to say it's not there, it's just me finding the right map. So this first ride, or first video, is the journey from the national park to the village and then further east from there. Now the road itself, I often comment about the roads if you've followed in my other motorcycle videos, so you'll know that. The road itself seemed to be in pretty good condition, just going across a small one-lane bridge there, but despite the fact that it's a narrow road and a one-lane bridge, it's obviously a C-class road, and as you can see right at the moment there are some of those white guideposts on either side of the road, which is handy. There are, for the most part, no markings down the centre of the road, and when I see that on a road, it generally gives me a sense of being a bit more cautious on the road. Obviously you only overtake with these long, straight, clear stretches, and there's not many of those here. It's curved a lot, as you can see just where we're going now, and there's a lot of trees and bushes on the side of the road, so the vision ahead is not always clear. But despite all of that, the road generally seemed to be well maintained. In fact, there's a section, I'm not sure if it's in this clip or the next one, where there are some people doing some work on the road. There didn't seem to be a lot of patches or potholes or things like that, so it was reasonably comfortable to ride. As you can see, the camera here is not bouncing around a lot, so it's not like it's a terribly uneven or rough road. In the second clip I managed to make a wrong turn somewhere and end up on a dirt road, and you'll see that in the second clip, so I won't say too much about it now. The land out here, I guess, is mostly Crown land. In other words, it's not farming land, it's land that belongs to the state government. It has no use at the moment. I imagine there's probably feral animals, feral dogs and cats that probably we find out here, as well as native wildlife, kangaroos, wombats, those sort of animals that you would expect to see out here. In the Bungonia National Park, in the I think it's the Molly O'Neill, called the Molly O'Neill Nature Walk. There were some signs about native animals, including sugar gliders, but I think that sugar gliders are nocturnal animals, so you wouldn't expect to see one during the daytime here. I didn't see much roadkill on the side of the road, so I don't know whether that means there isn't a lot of wildlife or there's not a lot of traffic on this road to encounter the wildlife. But as I said, it's mostly Crown land, and it seems that it's what I would call that open woodland. In other words, there are timbered sections, but it's not like a thick forest or bush, but there are sort of lines of trees along the edge of the road and places like that, and then behind that the path, it's more open grassland type, or more like pasture, with trees dotted intermittently throughout it. Now if you were to look at some of those the videos that I made of the look downs, you'll see that when you look down into the Shoalhaven Valley, the valley of the Shoalhaven River, those areas are quite densely forested with eucalypts and other native trees. And as I say, you see the difference here, that there are trees, but it's a bit more sporadic and a bit more open. It was a fairly pleasant sunny day that day, the 9th of December. I'm making this video today adding the audio today on the 21st of December. And the reason it's taken me so long to get around to that is I've been doing some running videos and some children's stories, and I was trying to think about what it was I would talk about while this video was running. And rather than just actually at the point, just interrupting, I'm coming to the point now where I'm coming to that T intersection and turning left, and just up this road here we'll come to the village of Bungonia, so we might just let it go for a moment and hopefully you'll be able to see that. I've suggested before with some of my running videos that it's probably best if you watch these things in full screen, because on the little screen, or the standard YouTube playing screen, some of the detail of what I'm talking about, you might be able to see that white building that I talked about. I think that's the community hall that acts as a cafe. It's on the right hand side just there, and you can see here the marking down the middle of the road. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's probably better if you're prepared to either watch these in full screen mode or theatre mode, because then you get a much bigger picture, and some of the things that I'm talking about here we'll talk about in the videos that you might not be able to see in the smaller standard YouTube version. YouTube screen size version. So I was trying to think about what I might talk about, and I know that sometimes the things that I speak about when I'm doing these motorcycle videos might not be all that interesting to people. Some people don't want to hear your opinions about coronavirus or education or road safety or anything like that. They figure if you want to sort of, I guess they assume if you want to do a political forum of some sort or thing like that, start another channel. This one, it's advertised as motorcycle vlogs. So talk about motorcycling, but in all of the early videos, I made the first trip I took, I made about 6 videos and talked about all the things that I could think about to do with motorcycling. I don't want to talk about an individual motorcycle, especially one that I haven't owned. I know there are lots of models of motorcycles and you can find all sorts of videos about those, but I haven't owned those videos and I haven't in many cases ridden them. So, I don't talk about those things. Generally when I'm doing these videos I think about either something that's coming to my mind as I'm out riding and something I've seen on the road or something that's been happening in the news that day or in the last day or two, or maybe something I've read in a newspaper or read in an article somewhere or seen in a television program, and something that's piqued my interest, as they say, and I've talked about that. But this time I didn't think I would do that. I just thought I'd let, as much as possible, just let the scenery unfold and describe for you what it is that I'm seeing and see if that was more to the liking of some. I suppose it's a bit late in the video to say if you're not interested in hearing me talk about those things, turn the volume down and just enjoy the scenery. But that, of course, is always an option. So went through the village and still going east. Even if you continue in an easterly direction, you would, I think this road must be the O'Allen Ford Road, and it would take you across the Shoalhaven River to a place called O'Allen Ford, and then it takes you a little bit further on to another river crossing, creek crossing, and eventually would join up with the Nerriga Road, and you might remember that from the ride out to Braidwood that I took in a previous motorcycling video, and then that would take you on to Nerriga, and beyond Nerriga is Nowra. When I say beyond, it's probably about 100 k's or something. I should say there's no petrol beyond at Nerriga. There's food, but there's no fuel there. There's no fuel in Bungonia, so if you were leaving Goulburn with the intention of taking this road and going to Nowra, you'd need to make sure you were on a full tank and that your bike was capable of travelling that distance on a full tank. If you came to the Nerriga Road intersection, you could go back into Braidwood and get fuel, but I don't know that that's a terribly good road for most bikes. There's a section of it that I rode at that time that was not surfaced, and it's certainly not good for bikes. Now, you can see here at the moment I'm stopped because there's a truck in front of me, and it's stopped because there's some roadworks. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, some people working on the road, and just beyond where we are now, I took a right-hand turn where the signpost indicated Tarago. I'll let that happen before let that bit unfold before I describe what happened next. So we're on the move again. See how the country here is much more open. There are no trees on either side of the road, or only a few trees, and the land either side appears to be quite more like open pasture or open grassland or something. So you can see by the marking, the cones, there are people working on the road here. And there's an intersection coming up here with a sign that pointed towards Tarago. So I went down this road here thinking that I would get, clearly thinking by the sign that I would get to Tarago, but either there was another turn off that I should have taken somewhere that I missed, or I misread the sign or something, because it certainly did not lead me to Tarago. You probably won't see what happened in this video clip, because I'm not sure this is going to be long enough to show that. So I'll probably leave it to the next one to describe in more detail what happened. I can't recall what the name of this road is either, and I didn't take the notice of the sign at the time. And again, when I tried to look for maps to indicate so I could include those in the video of where I went, I couldn't find this road marked on a map. So it's a surface road, it's a C-class road in surface, but so it is an actual road, but its name I couldn't find. Probably travelling along here at about 90 k's an hour, sometimes using the cruise control and other times not. My preference to use the cruise control on the bike whenever I can. Among other things, it gives you a chance to get your right hand off the grips and loosen that grip of death that you often get in your right hand. Cruise control works exactly the same as it does in your car. In other words, if you hit either of the brakes or even you pull the clutch in, the cruise control disengages. Well, I'm coming to the end of this first video clip, so thank you for watching. There are 2 more, and I'll post those in the next few days, and I'll speak to you when I'm posting those videos and giving you some more commentary about where it is I'm going and what it is I'm seeing. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.